and he's going to house it.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and NASCAR home. I'm your host, Kyle Robert. You follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. With me yet again this week, it's Brian Twining. Brian, I feel like we've done 100 shows this week, cranking out the content for the people. A little fantasy, a little NASCAR, a little sports betting. Make sure you are going and checking out all of the videos, all of the podcasts. If you're on iTunes, please rate, review 5 stars. It really does do a lot. If you're on YouTube, smash the like, subscribe, all that stuff. We're marching towards 250 on YouTube. Share it around, especially the betting stuff, the NASCAR stuff. If you want to hide our fantasy football hot takes, well then I don't blame you because we are awesome. But but yes, please share the show around. Please tell your friends. It really does do a lot to build our show and help us keep creating all this content for y'all. So Brian, today we are doing another round of the $100 challenge. If you missed it, we did what did we do last time? My brain is working.
We did Super Bowl bets.
Super Bowl winners. That's right. Me and Brian are walking up to the window with $100. We are making a couple bets, 2, 3, 4, whatever it may be, spreading out the wealth. And then we're going to track it over the season, see how we do and see how much money we make. And then there's going to be some sort of bet payoff at the end. But Brian's got 4. I got 4. There's a little controversy. There's a little, if you've watched some of the names, any of our shows before, some of these names might sound familiar. There's a lot going on. So Brian, let's start the show with a bang. And you can talk to me about your boy, Nick Chubb, who you have going over 1,575 total yards this season.
Yeah, I don't see why this number is set so low. To me, I think this is a low number. When you're looking at what Chubb has done the last 2 years, yes, last year he barely posted over 1,000 yards, but he only played in 12 games. He was on pace for over 1,400 rushing yards, and he had already accumulated over 140 receiving yards, which would have put him right there in terms of if he hadn't even gotten any more receiving yards, he crushes this number. In 2019, in a full slate, he posted over 1,750 yards in an offense that was still kind of anemic in the passing game. I think this passing offense, as it's getting better, is actually going to improve the running game and lead to better, like less volume-sized performances with a lot of yards out of this rushing offense. So I just think this is one of my favorite bets going into this season. I think Nick Chubb, I've said it multiple times, is the best pure runner in the NFL, not necessarily the best athlete at the position, but the best pure runner from the running back position. And I think he crushes this number this season.
Brian, I hate to break it to you, but Nick Chubb is not going over 1,500 yards total. He is not going over 1,350. And we could go into why, and I'll explain to you where my head's at. First of all, this is a guy that has had some injury woes. Yes, he hasn't really missed a ton of time, but between Georgia and the NFL, there's been enough things where if he misses a couple games here or there, he's going to fall short of this number. I also think Kareem Hunt is going to be a part of this offense. I expect him to be involved, obviously, in the passing game, but I think he gets a little more work in the running game to keep the aforementioned Nick Chubb healthy. And as you mentioned, this is those numbers he put up in 2019 was based on when the passing offense was not good. The passing offense has improved significantly. We saw the volume go up over the second half. And it was a big part of why they made such an impressive run towards the end. I expect a better season from Odell, Jarvis Landry, Austin Hooper, and your nemesis, Baker Mayfield. All of these things are going to lead to, yes, I expect the offense to be better. I expect Nick Chubb to be more efficient. But in terms of pure yardage totals, I will take the under on the total yards, and I will take the under on the rushing yards.
Yeah, why do you got to be so negative here? I just don't. In this division, with the amount of cold weather games that this team is going to play at the latter half of the year, I'm sorry. I'm not putting miniature Baker Mayfield out there to drop back 30 to 40 times in the snow if it comes to that. I'm giving the ball to my two-headed backfield in Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. And regardless if they're splitting, 30 to 40 carries between them, 15 carries for Nick Chubb is enough for him to go over $150 sometimes. We've seen it on numerous occasions where this guy, he does not take the volume that Derrick Henry does necessarily to approach those numbers. So I think Nick Chubb, mind you, he's been averaging over 5 yards a carry each of the last 2 years. So this guy breaks off those big chunks too. So I think the likelihood of him going over the total yards is probably better than the rushing yards because of what you said about them kind of splitting the carries, because I think Chubb, much like Derrick Henry, they try to get him involved in the passing game a little bit more. And mind you, too, in 2019, Chubb actually saw, I think it was upwards of like 40-something targets that season. So I do think that he's going to be around that 30 to 35 target range. 20 catches for almost if he can get to 150, 200 receiving yards, I think should get him pretty close to the total yards number, especially with 17 games.
Yeah, no, that is also a great point. The extra game could be the difference between the totals going over and under. I will say, I think a number we could both agree on is Nick Chubb rushing touchdowns over 11.5.
Yeah, I think
with 12 to 14 is very much in his very, very cautious range of outcomes.
Yes.
I will say just going under in general just tends to work out better just because we see attrition at the running back position. We see adjustments. We see, it's just there was a few rushing yard. We'll talk some other running backs here in a little bit, but in terms of pure rushing yards, there was a few numbers that really stood out to me as like, that feels aggressive. Like Chris Carson, 1,000 yards. I will take the under on that. Dalvin Cook, 1,375. Like, he's a guy that could smash 1,500, but he could also get injured in week 6, and then we kind of never see him.
I think another interesting. I was going to say Alvin Kamara's number is set at 945, and yes, Alvin Kamara is a stud at running back, but I really don't think teams. Drew Brees had a noodle arm, but teams had to play back on him because he's just so cerebral back there. I think they're more willing to take the one-on-one chances on the outside against the Jameis Winston or a Taysom Hill to try to stop Alvin Kamara from breaking off those big plays. So I think his side of like hitting those totals is going to be in the passing game again. Whereas I don't know if he gets close to that 1,000 rushing yards.
Yeah. We've talked about it a little bit, but like, I expect Latavius to be a big part of this offense. I expect a lot of Taysom Hill, all that leading to Alvin Kamara in terms of pure rushing yards to go under. You could also fade J.K. Dobbins under. He's my guy, but 1,050 yards in an offense where we expect Lamar to run, we expect Gus Edwards to run, could be interesting. And then if you want to go optimism, Darrell Henderson, 925.5. I'm optimistic that this guy can be 1,000 yard, 1,200 yard back, maybe 12 touchdowns, 10 touchdowns. Like, I don't think that's crazy.
I think that's a pretty low number when you take into account the teams that he's running against. Seattle, they haven't been as good a defense. They are not the Legion of Boom anymore. Arizona's defense on the front seven, they're more built for, rushing the passer, not stopping the run. And then San Francisco, as good as they are on defense, them too, they're more of let's get to the quarterback, let's get down inside, get in the QB's face. So I do think that the Rams will want to protect Matthew Stafford a little bit, and being really the only guy back there getting up to 1,000 yards in 17 games. That number seems fairly low when looking at what that offense, the way it's built.
The other number that was interesting to me is Jonathan Taylor, 1,175. That is interesting, especially with the quarterback conundrums without Quentin Nelson, with Marlon Mack still there enough, with Nyheim Hines still there enough. Like, approaching 1,200 yards seems a little aggressive, even as impressive as Jonathan Taylor was a season ago.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of contradict myself here, but so yes, I am slightly worried about Jonathan Taylor in terms of fantasy. For me, it's mainly so in the passing game, just knowing that Naheem Hines and Marlon Mack are there, and I think they take enough touches away from him that it kind of curbs what he's able to produce fantasy wise. But I think that rushing number is something that he should crush. I mean, he is going to be the primary first and second down runner, and Quentin Nelson will be back sometime early on in the season. And then the latter half of the year, they get a pretty soft schedule. Their schedule softens up after the first 5 or 6 weeks. So I think he's the kind of guy that could go on one of those Derrick Henry type streaks in the back half of the season where he's just busting off 180-yard games like nothing. So
and we saw it last year, so it's obviously in his outcome. Let's keep moving forward with the other bets that we have on our card. Clyde Edwards-Helaire over 1275.5. I'm 100% on board with this one with you, assuming he plays the majority of games or close to it. I feel like between the passing game and the running game, he can absolutely approach 1,300 yards.
Yeah, this number to me is like one of the lowest, the biggest mistakes that the odds makers have done, and I think they're playing too much into the Darrell Williams, Jerick McKinnon crap that we're hearing out of camp. This guy only played 12 games last year and eclipsed 1,200 all-purpose yards. So 17 games, even if he plays 15, he's gonna get over this. In this offense with Patrick Mahomes, they're expected to score the most points in the NFL, average the most points per game. How do you not go over on almost every single one of these guys' player props?
Yeah. I mean, in general, just fading everybody is going to win you more money in the long run. But I think this is a good move. I think he's got a potential to. And I mean, this is a guy that a year ago we were taking in the first round of fantasy. We're all excited now. 1 year later, after he was fine, he wasn't terrible. Wasn't a train wreck. Nobody likes him. I don't know. Brian, I know this is going to crush your soul, but I have to do it to you.
Oh, no.
Chase Edmonds, over 955.5 total yards. What? I don't understand what I'm missing here. This is a guy that in the bad side of a split time backfield last year with Kenyon Drake was at like 880. Like I'm obviously optimistic. I think he could be 12 to 1,500 yards and smash this number in an offense that we expect to be solid. We expect to be running a lot of plays. If Chase Edmonds is on the field, even 65% of the time, I don't see how he doesn't go over this number.
Yeah, I feel like this is another case of the books not properly planning for that 17th week, especially for a team like the Cardinals, who, if they get into the playoffs, it's going to come down to that last week in all likelihood. So they're going to have to be playing their starters all 17 weeks. Now, going back to our conversation about Nick Chubb, Chase Edmonds being kind of a smallish kind of back, and he's kind of dealt with a little bit of nagging like lower body stuff. There is the possibility that he does get hurt, but with James Conner seemingly refusing to get the COVID shot, there's a possibility that he has to go out again sometime this year. We're hearing Eno Benjamin come up, but Edmonds is going to be the receiving guy here. Yeah. So last year, over 400 yards, he didn't even get to 100 carries. I think he crushes that number. He's probably 130, 140 this year. And then even if he maintains that same passing down work, he's going to get over this.
Yep. I think 400 to 500 yards at least in the receiving game, and then another 400 to 500 in the passing game. I feel like 5.5 or 6.4, something like that. I think that's very reasonable. And you can fade James Conner like I think you should. If you want to do that, his totals are set at 595.5. I like the under there.
I'll take the under there, but he's going to have a Jordan Howard type season. He's going to have 10 carries for 10 touchdowns.
Gross.
He's going to be the Matt Asiata of fantasy football this year.
Let's stay at the running back position and go with your next guy, Ezekiel Elliott, over 9.5 rushing touchdowns. I'm on board with this. You can.
I don't understand this.
You can have questions about yardage. Well, I guess the expectation is they're banking on injury, right? Like, you could question his rushing yards, you could question his receiving yards, you could wonder how much of Tony Pollard's going to have. But if this offense clicks the way we, with Dak and CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper and the tight ends, and like Zeke's going to have 12 to 15 touchdowns on the ground and crush this number.
Yeah, I honestly think that Zeke is in the position this year that even with a reduced role, I think he has the opportunity to get 15 to 18 total touchdowns. I mean, looking at what he did at the beginning of last year with Dak, in the first 5 games of the season, all started by Dak Prescott, he had 5 of his 6 touchdowns. He did not score another touchdown until week 17. This guy, the previous year, set career highs in rushing touchdowns at 13 with Dak. Dak had 3 rushing touchdowns over the first 5 games last year as well. Do you really think that the Cowboys and Jerry Jones are going to be happy with Dak Prescott taking those chances near the goal line anymore after signing to that big contract? Hell no. They're going to be feeding the Zeke monster early, often, and all season. So, yeah, I think he absolutely destroys this touchdown number.
And Brian, if we want to get real aggressive, we can look at Zeke Elliott for most rushing touchdowns at 15-1.
I think there is a legit shot. Like I said, 15 plus here.
Yeah, I mean, I get like he's behind Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, McCaffrey, Chubb, Jonathan Taylor, Alvin Kamara. Like
Kamara's not going to have another 6 touchdown game though.
Yeah, that seems insane. So yeah, I'm 100% on board with this and very much on board. Let's go with my next pick. We'll switch positions and we'll talk quarterback. Tua Tagovailoa over 4,000.5 passing yards. All the Dolphins have done this offseason is give weapons to Tua. Gave him Jalen Waddle, gave him Will Fuller. Yes, they're both a little banged up in training camp. I think.
Well, of course, Will Fuller is.
Death taxes and Will Fuller getting injured, but and I just think this offense is set to throw the ball, set to be productive. Last year, between Fitzmagic and Tua, they almost basically threw for 4,000 yards in an offense that was an absolute dumpster fire. I expect it to take huge strides this year. You also have Myles Gaskin, who can be a huge game changer out of the backfield in the passing game. I think 42 to 4,500 is not crazy for Tua. That means I think 4,000 yards is definitely an over. I think, Jalen Waddle has a great season. Will Fuller, the tight ends, Mike Gesicki. Like, there's just so much to like about what the direction of this offense is going, that if Tua hits like he has the potential to do, 4,000 yards is going to be an easy, we could be, and especially with that extra game, we could be talking about him going over 4,000 in week 12, week 13, week 14, something like that.
Yeah, the only reason that I would be slightly pessimistic about this is the fact that he's got to face New England and Buffalo twice, both really good pass defenses. But when you look at Tua's progression last year, I mean, he completed 65% of his passes in an offense that was super simplistic. Like you said, they had nobody on the outside for him to throw to. I mean, at the end of the season, he was throwing to Mike Gesicki and Joe Schmo.
Yeah.
I mean, he had nobody on the outside to throw the ball to. And like you said, they loaded up on weapons for him. So I think that this is a number that he could get to. He'd only have to average around 240 a game. So,
yep. And I don't expect them to do pull shenanigans. Like, I don't think they're going to do the same thing with Jacoby Brissett they did with Fitzmagic. So I'm all aboard the Tua hype train this year. And I think it's a 4,000 yards is definitely a number I can get behind. Let's stay with the quarterback position. We'll talk about the guy that you want to chat about. Lamar Jackson, over 25.5 passing touchdowns.
This guy, okay. If I'm making an MVP bet right now, it's probably I'm putting the most money on Lamar Jackson. He's the only guy in the NFL other than Kyler Murray who offers the upside of double-digit rushing touchdowns, over 1,000 rushing yards. He's going to throw for over 25 touchdowns guaranteed. He's done it both of the last 2 seasons. He's actually thrown 26 plus each of the last 2 seasons. Last year was a down year for Lamar Jackson, and he still eclipsed this number. They went out, drafted Rashad Bateman to give him an extra piece on the outside. They have Sammy Watkins to the outside. Yes, the wide receivers are banged up, but this offense is going to run through Lamar Jackson, and I think we see them get closer to 2019's version than last season. And I think at season's end, we're talking about Lamar Jackson in the MVP conversation. He's going to be over 30 passing touchdowns, close to 10 rushing touchdowns. I think he's getting back to 2019 MVP form.
Yeah, no, I like that call. I like the idea of Lamar in the passing game taking his strides and a little more, passing a little more on Lamar's actual arm, not on his legs, and him going over. Yeah, I mean, 50 touchdowns, 35 passing, or 30 passing and 15 on the ground. Like there's a path to him having that MVP season, as you mentioned, 16-1 over at DraftKings Sportsbook. I don't hate that. Him and Kyler, even Dak at 16. Like I wouldn't mind just taking a shot on all three of those guys and seeing what happens. The next and final one, I believe, Calvin Ridley to lead the league in receiving yards at plus 750.
I love this.
I'm all aboard the Calvin Ridley hype train. I was looking at his receiving yards. And they set the number at, hold on, bear with me.
They set the number at
1350.5, and the over is getting pounded. I like supplementing your bet with that because I think the over makes a ton of sense. But I think this is a number that you could absolutely, like, and he's obviously the favorite, so I'm not saying anything crazy, but like, this offense is so filtered to really two and a half guys with Ridley and Kyle Pitts kind of being the next guy. And then, they'll mix in the other guys, I'm sure. And Hayden Hurst will get some look. But this is a guy who could go for 1,500 yards, maybe even more. Matt Ryan's going to throw to him early, throw to him often. And I expect a monster season, especially you consider the defense is going to be bad. They're going to have to throw to stay in games. This could be an offense that averages 40-something points a game, going, 6-11 or whatever.
Oh, that would be awesome.
But yeah, plus 750. Like I could totally see that. Last year, Stephon Diggs had 1535. DeAndre Hopkins at 1,400, so probably 14 to 1,550 is about where you need to be to really have a shot at being the lead leader at the end of the season. I think Calvin Ridley at plus 750 makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, he was on pace last year to go close to 1,450, 1,500 if he hadn't missed a game. And also there was a couple games where he was banged up and he really was more of a decoy than actually utilized in the passing game. So I think the biggest thing here, though, too, is that Arthur Smith coming in from Tennessee, he kind of falls under that. We talked about this on another show. I forget which one, but he falls into that Shanahan tree where the number one wide receiver in those offenses, they are peppered with targets and they destroy everyone else on the team in terms of target share and such. So I think Calvin Ridley, who I've been on for the last 2 years, I think I want to say, as taking over that alpha role in Atlanta, he is right there as one of the best, if not the best wide receiver in the NFL right now. And it's time people recognize it. And this could be the season.
Yep. And he doesn't have another stud to worry about. He doesn't have a Derrick Henry who could steal a ton of work from him. He's the guy. Yep. And maybe he falls flat on his face, kind of like Juju did when Antonio Brown, but I think he's too talented and he's shown way too much over his first few seasons to really be somebody that just kind of doesn't lead up. And like I said, this is a bigger bet you can put on. You can take the yardage, take the over, you'll get to 1,400, and then week 16, week 17, especially look at that playoff schedule. It's really nice. He could be a guy that is winning people fantasy leagues and cashing this ticket for you. And at plus 750, that's a nice payday.
Yeah, that is a nice number for that.
All right, Brian. Those are our 8 bets. Let's run through. And I think for me, I'm honestly like, man, I'm probably gonna go like, because we're each doing $100. I'm probably gonna go 30 on all of them and then $10 on Ridley. But we'll run through your 4 and then you tell me how you want to allocate your $100. So first, Nick Chubb over 1,575 total yards.
Going $20.
Okay. CEH 1275.5 total yards.
$20.
Lamar Jackson over 25.5. Let me guess. $20.
$30.
Woo! And then Zeke over 9.5 rushing touchdowns.
So he would be another 30, but there's one more that I may think about adding for just a small chunk. That's $5. The NFL rushing record for rushing yards to be broken this season, I think, is plus 20 to 1, I believe, or something. I think there's a good opportunity that we see Derrick Henry, who eclipsed 2,000 last year, or my boy Nick Chubb, if he's allowed to take the reins, get close to breaking that record with the 17-game schedule.
That's interesting. Well, let's see. So Derrick Henry is plus 350 to lead the league. Dalvin Cook at plus 550. Nick Chubb, Jonathan Taylor, McCaffrey at 10 to 1 is kind of interesting.
Nah.
But I think he'd be more like a thousand guy than like a 2,200. But yeah, I mean, an extra game could be really interesting. Saquon, if he stays healthy, you have to look at offenses that aren't going to have a ton of competition for touches. I'm not sure.
7 to 1 on the rushing yards. My apologies. I wish it was 20 to 1.
Yeah. At that point, I'd probably have to back off. But
hey, for $5,
yeah. Hey, see what happens.
But if I don't go there, I'm going 30 on Zeke. My two most confident ones are Lamar Jackson and Zeke, crushing their touchdown totals for sure.
Okay, I'm gonna go $30 on Nick Chubb under 1350.
It's
I'm
on.
gonna go $30 on Chase Edmonds over 955. I'm gonna put $30 on Tua to go 4,000 yards, and I'm gonna throw $10 on Calvin Ridley for most receiving yards at plus 750. Those are our best bets. Brian and I might do these. Let us know down in the comments what your favorite player prop for the season is: rushing yards, receiving yards, touchdowns, whatever it is. MVP,
Awards.
your favorite wager for the season. And Brian and I will try and get in the comments. We'll try and cobble together some more shows for you to keep this stuff entertaining and keep you ready to win your fantasy league, make some money at the sports bet, and all that good stuff. That's Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert, and we'll talk to you guys next time.